Hi everyone and welcome back to World Literature class. So previously we have talked about already Asian literature. At this point in time, we'll now be moving with another place to really talk about, which is about Australian literature. So as we move on to our lesson, we're gonna be dealing with the following. First is what is Australian literature. Second, of course, is what are the characteristics of Australian literature and what are the thematic topics into their literary works. And then the third one is how does history shapes Australian literature. So let's move on. So let's have first an introduction about Australian literature. Of course, when we talk about Australian literature, this is a literature really from Australia and the other preceding colonies. So for Aboriginal people or the people from Australia, their tradition and culture and stories and songs are clearly seen into their literary works. And if you're going to be looking into the culture or into the history of Australia, they're really, their literary works are affected with the history. And of course, because of the European explorers that really, came into their place. And with that, they have also an influence from the British people, since in 1786, Britain dispatched a fleet of 11 ships containing 736 convicted felons or bad people to set up a penal, settlement in Botany Bay in New South Wales. So let's now move on. So here, for the Australian literature, the father of Australian literature is Marcus Clarkes, by his natural life at 1874, and he has that authority that the first novel regarded as an Australian classic. So these are the literary works under Australian literature by Abel Johnson, from the and also Robert Southey, from the Romantic poet, from the Botany Bay Eclogues, and William Wentworth, an Australian poet, adventurer, journalist, and politician. You need to understand who are the literary works or people, meaning the Australian poets and literary writers, so that you will understand how they really work in terms of trying to put the literary themes into their works and what is the core of their topics. Okay, so we do have also David Yunaipon. The first he discussed and also presented the description of Aboriginal mythology and recorded into Aboriginal was offered. So he published also the Aboriginal book, which is more of We Are Going, and well known as the Aboriginal poet and writer and activist. Okay. So next one is we do have also Norman Lindsay, um, who wrote The Magic Pudding. And we do have also Ethel Pedley, who was the author of Dot and the Kangaroo. And also, awarded the Children Books Council Award, winning body for outstanding authors and literary piece that contributed to Australian children literature. Okay, so they have that kind of award. Actually, different countries have their own different awards. However, we do have also, international awards in terms of literary works. So we do have also Jackie French, who wrote the Hitler's Daughter, and Sally Morgan, who wrote the My Place, and also Ethel Turner, who wrote The Seven Little Australian. So let's move on. So here also, as early as 1790, a second settlement has been established at Norfolk Island over the next 50 years. And therefore, there is a discovery of gold in North South Wales in Victoria in 1851 and began the first large-scale free migration to Australia. So aside from that also, as the Great Southland or Terra Australis, Australia had figured in European imagination, and therefore there is a discovery of indigenous Australia. And therefore, Australia was therefore cleared and settled under the legal fiction, was called terra nullius, or land that belonged to no one, since Australia is really, well known for fighting for equality and because of the explorers and invasion and the others, therefore more of most of their literary works are affected with equality, fairness, and fighting for freedom. So these are the themes of Australian literature. First, we do have the critic of abusive power, the aboriginality or the people of Australia, the quest for identity and identity crisis, the migration, the post-colonial trauma, the hybridity, ambivalence, and mimicry, the anti-canonical and colonial hegemony. So we do have also the politics of representation, the anti-colonial resistance, the stolen generations narrative, the democracy, and the egalitarianism. So when we talk about critique of abusive power and colonialism, this is more of fighting for crimes against humanity, and therefore looking into the abusive of people in power in terms of ownership of lands. So colonial settlers and their descendants have justified their theft and robbery of the resources, and therefore really looking into the freedom and the fight for indigenous people in the discourse of race and backwardness and civilization and modernity. So most of the literary work are more of really looking into injustices of these people, from the people from the one who is into the higher ups or having a high power. Okay. So Aboriginal is a person who is a member of the Aboriginal race of Australia, and therefore they try to look into the usual life of people in Australia. Another is about the quest for identity and identity crisis. This is a theme where they try to demonstrate the identity of Aboriginal people, and therefore they try to look into the authenticity of the life of Australian people. So to really look into their identities and their beliefs and traditions and the authenticity of life. So they do have also presented and analyzes some literature for academic and popular recognition through larger national quest for confident identity. So that one, adjusting their beliefs. So let's have the next one, the literary theme, which is about the anti-canonical and colonial hegemony. Here, they try to present into their literary works the human activity and human discourses that presents a complexity of unity of differences. So the desire to connect with indigenous appreciation and the land by partially melting indigenous and non-indigenous perception. So another one is the political representation, wherein here they try to present the suffering and past glory of whites. Since as you try to look into Australian, there is a mixture of white and the usual Australian people, since they were invaded and they were influenced by the explorer. So definitely, they try to look into the differences of different people. Okay. So let's now move on. So Australian and is characterized by celebratory stories about the efforts of main pioneers, explorers, and pastoralists. So next one is the egalitarianism, like the one that I have told you last time, that Australian people are into really, presenting equal and deserving equal rights and opportunity. Since there is already a combination of the exploration of the Australian people. So therefore, since they were invaded, and so therefore different cultures and influences are coming into Australia. Therefore, they try to look into the looking for equal rights and opportunities, and also with the case of abusive power. So that would be all for the Australian literature. And later on, I'll be giving you already your was it activity for the Australian literature topic. So that would be all, everyone. Goodbye.